and we have just started the recording. So as I mentioned previously, it is my great pleasure to be your presenter for today. We will speak only about 3 tools out of the larger group of ITC market analysis tools. So if you are interested in other tools, I strongly recommend you to go to dedicated websites and have a tour over those tools. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask us. I will now start sharing my presentation. Lucas, can you please confirm that you see my presentation in presenting mode, or do you see it in?
We actually see the other mode.
You don't see the correct mode, so I will just fix this.
There you go, that's correct.
Yes, perfect. And you still see correctly, right? So,
yes.
Welcome everybody. As I mentioned previously, my name is Katerina. Please do not hesitate to drop your messages and comments and questions in the chat box you have available. And as I mentioned already during our chat previously, we will talk about 3 tools today. We will speak about the export potential map, the trade map, and the market access map. But I already mentioned too that the group of our tools is much larger, and I strongly recommend you to explore also other tools. For example, the rules of origin facilitator, or the market price information tool with the real-time information on selected agricultural products. We also have the procurement map with the information on trenders, and we have the investment map with the latest information on foreign direct investment, and sustainability map with the information on voluntary standards. So as you can see, our portfolio is really, really broad. What is important to mention, I would strongly recommend you to register if you wish to use our tools. In some cases, this can make a difference in terms of the availability of information for that particular tool. And I'm very thrilled to share with you that our tools, or the use of our tools, is free of charge for subscribers from developing countries, and also for those of you who are based in the European Union. If you are based in another developed country, you might be requested to pay a fee in order to have all functions of our tools available. But in any case, you have access to our tools even free of charge, but some functions might be restricted. Today, we will speak a lot about trade in goods. If we find time, I will also say a few words about trade in services, but 90 minutes are not much, so I'm a little bit skeptical about this. But we will mainly focus on trade and goods. When speaking about trade in goods, we need to know the harmonized system, product classification. This is the classification of trade in goods maintained by the World Customs Organization. And this classification is used for more than 98% of all merchandise trade globally. So this harmonized system is very easy to use. We have the system of codes divided into 21 sections, 97 chapters at a 2-digit level. Each chapter is then divided into headings at a 4-digit level, and headings would be divided into subheadings at the 6-digit level. What is important to mention here, the chapters and headings and subheadings would constitute the harmonized area. Most countries, or almost all countries of the world, would use these codes. So up or down to the 6-digit level, the codes would be harmonized. If we go beyond the 6-digit level, we will find ourselves at the level of national tariff lines. And here the codes are not harmonized anymore. These codes are country specific, or let's say the market specific if we speak, for example, about tariff codes for the EU. It is very important also to mention that this harmonized system product classification is subject to revisions. The latest revision occurred last year. So from time to time, codes might change. If this is the case, our tools will let you know. For example, in TradeMap, you will find the correspondence table. If you don't find the past data for the particular code, you can go to the correspondence table and see what was the previous applicable code. In case of the export potential map, it can sometimes happen that you don't see the export potential at the level of subheadings, at the level of 6 digits. You might see, for example, 4 digits and then XX. That means that we had to create the product group because of the change in HS codes. So this is also something very important to keep in mind. Since I'm very happy that we have many participants from many different countries and also with different backgrounds, I took the liberty to choose our scenario for today. And I was very excited to see a hello note from a colleague from Peru, because for our presentation today, I chose the Peruvian scenario. We will help a Peruvian trade advisor. You can see this lady on the slide. I call her Maria, but you can call her any name you wish. And Maria is trying to identify products with greatest export potential and markets with greatest untapped potential for Peruvian exports. So she wants to see what the prospects are, what markets could be worth to focus on, and what products can be worth to focus on, where the export potential lies. For this, Maria and us together with Maria, we will use the export potential map. Once we select one product with the interesting export potential, also with the untapped potential, we will go further and we will start our analytical work for this product. We will switch to the trade map and we will have a close look at the bilateral trade data and trade indicators. We will try to identify the most interesting markets in terms of market dynamics. We will see where the demand is, and we will also see what is the performance of Peru compared to the performance of its main competitors in that selected market. With the help of this analysis, we will further narrow down the selection of countries, and then we will ask us a very pertinent questions. Okay, I identified the markets, but what are the market access conditions to access those markets? And for that, together with Maria and her Peruvian client, we will explore the market access conditions through the market access map. So this is our scenario for today. And in case there are no questions at this point, we can start with the first tool. What do you think, Lucas? Do we have any questions?
No, you can proceed for now.
Lovely.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned, Maria is a trade advisor. She works at one of the Peruvian institutions. And she asks herself a very pertinent questions, probably the questions all of us have asked themselves of ourselves at a certain point. What are the promising market? Where does the export potential lie? We have a very sophisticated tool, which is called the Export Potential Map, that help us identify products, markets, and suppliers with export potential and discover how much of this potential is currently used, whether there is any theoretical room for improvement. Besides that, this tool can be also used for the export diversification. That means for the identification of new products with good chances of export success in regional and global markets. It is important to mention that the Export Potential Map is an analytical tool based on the economic trade model. This model combines lots of data from different sources. It combines the bilateral trade data, it combines data on tariffs, it combines the information on GDP growth, population growth, and also geographic data. The model allows us to evaluate export countries' supply capacity, target markets demand, tariff conditions, bilateral links between the exporting countries, and target markets. And for the production diversification component, we can also assess the likelihood of successful product diversification of our export baskets. We strongly believe that not only the export potential map, but all our tools are user-friendly and easy to navigate with. If you have any difficulties, please let us know, and I will try to explain in detail. What is also common for all of us, all of our tools, is the fact that they have very good coverage. In case of export potential map, we speak about 226 countries and territories. And in terms of product, we cover more than 4,000 product groups. This tool is available in English, Spanish, and French. And we believe strongly that it is very useful, not only for trade advisors such as Maria, or perhaps you, but also for policymakers and for private companies. Private companies can find the markets with untapped potential for their products there. So I already mentioned that the export potential map is based on a lot of data. It fits well into the suite of ITC market analysis tools. Obviously, in case for making our projections, we need to analyze trade flows. This data is taken from trade map. We need to have the information on tariffs. This data is taken from market access map. And besides that, we take data also from other sources. We include the information on the GDP growth and population growth, the information on land endowment, sea access, for example, distances, and price elasticities. So all this data would be imputed in our model in order to assess the export potential for different products and markets. I will say the words export potential many, many times, but it is important to know that the export potential is not the maximum value that the exporter might reach. No, it is the value which is more likely a benchmark value. It corresponds to the benchmark value that the country should normally export to a market based on observed performance and demand conditions. So it is, let's say, the reasonably expected value. It can happen that country performs better, and it can also happen that the export potential is lower than the actual exports. For calculations of export potential, and this is very important, we use projections. We will use the projections for mid-term periods, so for the period of 5 years from the latest data available. So currently, if I'm not mistaken, we would have projections to up to 2027. If you are interested in methodology, you can go to the website of the export potential map, and on the homepage, you have the link to the methodological paper. Unfortunately, given the short time, we don't have time to analyze the calculations of the export potential index in detail, but please just let me bring forward one thing. The export potential, as calculated in our model, is a combination of supply indicator, a demand indicator, and the ease of trade indicator. Supply and demand are projected into the future based on the GDP and population forecasts. So we will take into account the expected growth of GDP per capita, for example. We will also impute the demand elasticities. How sensitive are the markets to changes in price of, for example, imported products, and forward-looking tariffs. The third indicator, the ease of trade, would compare the ease of trade between our exporting country and the target country with the average. So is, for example, for Peru, easier to trade with Colombia or than on a global average or not? So if it's easier, this indicator would be higher than 1 and would further make the export potential bigger. If not, it would be the opposite. So that's the ease of trade indicator. And we know that the ease of trade can be positively impacted by many factors, such as a common language, common border, and strong historic ties, for example. So now we have an idea what is the export potential as calculated in our model. We have a good idea what the actual exports are. And what is the difference between those two? That will be the untapped potential. Untapped or unrealized potential can exist due to many reasons. We already said that we make projections. So the existence of untapped potential can be partially based on the expected supply and demand growth. But there are also other elements which could contribute to the existence of the unrealized potential. These would include a very broad variety of factors. Some of them could be, for example, lacking information of exporters. If the exporter doesn't have the information about the other market, he or she is unlikely to export there. If they don't set the price correctly, or the quality is not set correctly, then they would not use the potential on the foreign market, etc. So the variety of the reasons for the existence of unrealized or untapped potential is very broad, and many of those reasons can be addressed, for example, by trade advisors. What is very important to mention again? The unrealized potential in our model cannot be negative. So it is calculated as difference between export potential and current exports. In case that the export potential is lower, the value would be lower than the value of current exports, we will impute to 0. So we don't use the negative values for the unrealized potential. So I think that I've said enough for the theoretical part, and now if you don't mind, we can start with our demonstration. For that, I will just go to the website of TradeMap. Lucas, can you please confirm that we see the TradeMap?
Yes.
Amazing.
Great. Thank you.
And we don't want to see TradeMap, but we want to see the export potential map, actually, right? Sorry for that. So we see the export potential website. Please let me make first just a very brief tour through the website. On the website, you have the brief description of the tool. As I said, if you wish to explore more, you click on the export potential methodology, and you can read a lot about the methodology and how we make our calculations. We also have a small tutorial here, and we have different websites for the estimating the export potential of products, markets, and exporters. I strongly recommend you to go also through the resources section, because in the resources section, we have the information about data sources, we have glossary, and we also have the frequently asked questions and tutorials. So please do not hesitate to find out more through this search, because as I said today, we have only limited time. So let's help Maria explore the potential export potential for Peru. We just simply enter the name of the country or the name of the product in the system, and we pick the opportunities for Peru as exporter. We immediately see that the estimated unrealized export potential for Peru is at 41 billion of US dollars. Now, we would like to export products. We would like to see where this export potential lies. By default, we will see a tree map for top 50 products. each product or product group is illustrated through a rectangle, and the size of this rectangle would correspond to the export potential. Each rectangle has a darker side and a lighter side. The darker side would correspond to the size of actual exports to already consumed potential, and the lighter side would correspond to the unrealized potential remaining, so the difference between those two. Based on this tree map, we can say that the product with the highest export potential for Peru would be copper ores and concentrates. The export potential, as calculated by our model, lies at 30 billion of US dollars. Actual exports are 13 billion of US dollars, and the unrealized potential would be the difference between those two. Now, Maria works above all with clients from the agriculture sector. So she would be more interested in learning in detail about the exports of vegetables and fruits. For that, we can narrow the selection down here. We can, for example, focus only on vegetables. We don't have to do fish. We do fruits and vegetables. And we also can, what is very useful here, we can narrow down the number of products. So we can do the top 30 or even top 25 to make it more legit. So it's fine. I still have, I don't want to do this. So we can play around and we can make our selection. Okay, so if we focus on fruits and vegetables only, we will see that Peru has a quite big export potential for the following products: for fresh grapes, for cranberries, bilberries, and other fruits, for avocados, for example, for guavas, bananas, and asparagus. And now, if we focus on fresh grapes,
Katerina, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you just make your screen a little bigger? Maybe
okay,
zoom in
it's
a
not.
little?
I will try. No, so I have to go out, I think. Lucas, can I zoom here? No, I will have to go out and yeah, here. Is it better now?
Yes, maybe a little bit too much. But
maybe a little bit too much.
it's just to see the screen where it shows the data regarding the
I
export
see. I'm working
potential.
on my laptop, so now would it be fine like this? Or yeah, because
I think this
maybe
should be
like
great.
this,
Yeah.
maybe like this, right?
Yeah,
Perfect.
looks good.
So if we focus on grapes, we immediately see that the export potential stands at 1.9 billion of US dollars. The actual exports are at 1.2 billion, and unrealized potential would be 864 million. So here you can see why it's important to understand the methodology a little bit, because instinctively we would say that the difference between the export potential and actual exports would be at 700 million, if I'm calculating correctly. But this is not the case. The figure differs, and it is also because of the fact that in our case, the unrealized potential cannot be negative. So it is likely that the export potential for Peru, for the exports of Peruvian grapes into some markets would be lower than the actual exports. But in that case, the unrealized potential is not negative, it's at 0. So that is why those figures do not always precisely match. Our advisor Maria is very happy to see this, because she remembers that recently there was a client who asked about the exports of grapes. The gentleman said that he is already exporting to the US and to Canada, and he would like to start exploring also other markets. For that, Maria would use this market button, and she will see on what markets this export potential lies. Is it? Can you see? Is it fine, or shall I play around with the Zoom?
Yes, I think it looks good.
Thank you. Thank you. So if we want to analyze the markets, we usually use the gap chart. This is the type of the chart you see on your screen now. By default, the system will show us top 20 markets for our product. How shall we read this chart? The bubbles correspond to the size of actual exports. So we can see that the country well, the highest share of Peruvian exports goes now is the United States. This line would illustrate the calculated size of the export potential, and the distance between two would be our untapped, unrealized potential. So based on this chart, we can see that the United States, China, the Netherlands, Canada, and the United Kingdom would be our top 5 countries in terms of the export potential for Peruvian grapes, fresh grapes. If sometimes you're unsure how to translate what you see in the chart, export potential uses very useful feature. You always have a description with key findings. So here the system would tell you that the markets with greatest potential for Peruvian exports of grapes are the United States, China, and the Netherlands. Exactly what I said now. And now we see the example of Hong Kong. And in case of Hong Kong, we can see that the actual exports are already higher than the export potential. As we said previously, this can happen, and this is probably due to strong branding of Peruvian fresh grapes on the local market in Hong Kong, and perhaps also because of the fact that Peruvian exporters tap into this market at the expense of other markets. They focus a lot on this market. So here we have the example of the country where the export potential as calculated is actually lower than the actual exports. We can also illustrate the same with the geomap. This chart shows us to what extent the export potential is already consumed. The size of the bubble would correspond to the size of the export potential. And the darker side would correspond to the size of the actual exports or to the value of the actual exports. So here we see that in case of the United States, the export potential was consumed already at almost 87%. In case of Netherlands, this figure would correspond to 65.7%. We can also go a step further and analyze the export potential. We can disaggregate the export potential into its subcomponents. So we have the supply at the core. We have demand here. The demand for the product at the target market would correspond to the size of the bubble. And the ease of trade will be illustrated through this line. And the thicker the line, the easier the trade. Again, we will find the description here at the bottom. So our key finding would be that the markets with greatest potential are again the United States, China, and the Netherlands. Now, the description says that Peru has closest export links with Ecuador, and the United States is the market with the highest demand potential. That is what we see here. Demand is illustrated by this bubble. If you want to see the ease of trade, we click here on this icon, and we indeed see that the easiest trade for Peruvian exporters would be the trade with Ecuador, for obvious reasons, proximity, common language, etc. So this is also the way how we can analyze. We don't have much time to speak about product diversification. If you're interested in this indicator, I would be happy then to say something later on, or I would like to invite you to have a look at the methodology. But instead, I will also show you one more feature. So now our consultant or our trade advisor knows what the markets with the highest potential for this particular products are. But she might be also interested in knowing What is the export potential for the competitors? For that, we click on exporters. Now we focus on global market, but we can easily also focus, for example, on the US market. And we see that the potential of Peru, the export potential for trade in grapes, fresh grapes for Peru, is actually calculated as the highest at this point. Chile would be second and the United States would be third. So that is also something Maria can show to her client. We can also reshuffle this ranking according to the actual exports. So the number one exporter at this point would be Chile. And to the size of the untapped potential. Here we see that Peru would score the second after the United States. So with the export potential map, you can really play around, you can narrow down the selection, you can do many, many things. So I think that I've already spoke a lot about the export potential, and I would like to know whether there are any questions now.
So far, so good. Answer most of the questions. There's nothing very substantial. I propose you go to the pool then.
Then we can go to the pool.
Great. So
thank you.
Let's make it a little bit interactive.
Then I have to stop sharing probably.
Yeah. So you're probably seeing a couple questions there. If
Yes.
you're not able to read everything, please just hover your mouse over the question or the answer, and then you should be able to read it. In any case, I'm going to read it for you. Please answer it. So why is it that the untapped potential for fresh grapes exported by Peru does not correspond to simple difference in export potential and realized exports? A, there's an error in the calculations. B, as EPM used data for different sources, this indicator is not updated. Or C, untapped potential cannot be negative, but projected export potential may be lower than actual export in some markets. And then for the second question, we have a more open question for you guys. So untapped export potential signals room for export growth. What can trade advisors do to make sure that untapped potential is used in the future? I'll leave you a few seconds for you guys to answer, and then you're going to see the results. Right, people are still voting. All right, let's check the results. Well, it seems that everybody has been paying attention. 100% of the answers were correct. So it means that untapped potential cannot be negative, but projected export potential may be lower than actual export in some markets. And when you aggregated it, there's a difference in the sum between.
Thank you very much. The reasons actually can be multifold, but that is the reason I spoke about the fact that the untapped potential in our model is not negative is one of the principal reasons for this. Thank you. How about the ways how to tap into the untapped potential? What can the trade advisors do in order to consume this untapped potential? Because I think we can go ahead with the second question.
Right, but we don't have any answers for that.
There are no answers.
No.
There are no answers. So we can do the collective brainstorming, or you can leave us your response in the chat, because myself, I didn't manage to enter my response there. A lot can be done, actually. The better information about potential business partners, the better information about NTMs. A lot can be done in terms of the advisory concerning the pricing and the quality requirements for the target market. So the ways how the trade advisors can act in order to smoothen this untapped potential are multifold. But the information is the key, obviously. So I think that we can go ahead. If you agree, I can see some further responses in the chat, and participants may be complaining about the dysfunctionality of the second question, right?
Yeah,
So we
apologies. That's
very
my,
sorry
my
for
mistake.
that. No. So Lucas, if you want to, you can maybe just read some responses from our participants.
Yeah, I'm just checking here, but I'm not able to see the answer for the question through the poll. But we have a participant that said trade advisors should use the tools when advising clients, and also show the clients how to use the tools. And that's it's a way of addressing the untapped potential.
Information and data is the key.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. So as we have limited time, I suggest that we go ahead with the second tool. And our second tool will be trade map today. We'll just move this. Can you please see my presentation again?
Yes, we can see the trade map.
Amazing. Great. So now our trade advisor, Maria, has the information about...
Apologies, we can see the trade map website. It's not the
you can
PowerPoint.
You don't see the PowerPoint? You don't see the PowerPoint?
That's correct. Yes, I thought it was the website. Apologies.
No. I just have a screenshot. So good. Perfect. So now our advisor, Maria, knows or is able to identify the products with the expo potential and the markets in the expo potential. She picked the fresh grapes as her preferred product because she has a clients interested in new markets. She also checked the performance of the main competitors. And now she would like to, in terms of expo potential, and now she would like to learn a little bit more about the demand, about the recent trade developments for this product, about identifying the dynamic market for this product, and more. And for this, we have the second tool, which is the trade map. We again believe that this is a very user-friendly application to analyze global trade flows based on one of the largest trade flow database in the world. The trade map has also amazing coverage. We collect information for over 220 countries and territories using data reported by 196 countries. This obviously means that some countries are non-reporting countries, and we will have to use the mirror data for them. The product coverage is also great. We cover over 5,300 products at the 6-digit level of the harmonized system, so at the level of subheadings. And we have the additional information for the national tariff lines for up to 10,000 products for more than 180 countries. What are our data sources? We collect data directly from national authorities, but also from the UN Comtrade that is produced by the United Nations Statistics Division. And if I'm not mistaken, we can go past to the year of 2001. If you are interested in more historical data, you will have to use the UN Comtrade for that. We have a very dedicated team of experts who work on the updates of trade map. All year round, we update the annual data at the tariff line level. We also impute the monthly and quarterly data. Currently, I ask our colleagues, so we have the data for December 2022 already for 37 countries, and more are to come soon. Twice a year, in May and in October, we update the data on trade and services, and 4 times a year we update the data on used for the indicators and the annual data at the 6-digit level of the harmonized system, plus the data of tariffs, but that is also sourced from other sources. So our team really works relentlessly on improving and updating the data. We are very proud of the quality of the data we produce. But obviously, any database of the international trade in goods would have limitations. These limitations would relate to the following factors. First, the export value refers to the total trade, total or contract value, not the local value added. It can also happen that besides the use of the harmonized system, some countries or some reporters can categorize the similar products differently. Also, the exchange rate fluctuations are sometimes recorded differently. And we also have the issue of the treatment of re-imports and re-exports. The international recommendation would be to include the re-imports and re-exports in the global data on exports and imports. But sometimes the countries do differently. Obviously, the trade data is never 100% complete. We have no way how to cover the informal trade, for example, how to cover smuggling. The trade that is not reported. We relentlessly try to remove the mistakes, but some mistakes cannot be removed. And since we use the mirror data, for non-reporting countries, we also have the issues of the difference in valuation of exports and imports. The exports would typically be valuated at FOB, free on board price, and the imports are typically evaluated at the CIF price, which would be higher. So then that's also something to keep in mind when using the mirror data. When we navigate through the trade map, we will see that we use many colors, many different colors. So just to briefly explain on the use of colors in trade map. We would use the violet color for word aggregation. We would use red color for negative values. We would use I believe this is orange or orange yellow, somewhere in between. This, I would say, orangey color for mirror data. So anytime we use mirror data, you will see it in the system. We use one shade of green for the estimates by UN Statistical Division, and another shade of green for the estimates made by us. So it is very important to be aware of the use of color in trade map. But good news is that in case we use the color normally, if you put the cursor on that color, the system will tell you what is behind. We also use the eye icon for metadata. So anytime you see the eye icon, we can click on it and you will receive more information, for example, on these indicators. When we do our tour through the trade map, it is very important to identify the right HS code for the product. The system here, or the database, is very user-friendly. You can either tap the tape or write down the name of the product, or if you know the code, you can directly write the code, or you can select the code from the menu. Then, once we have the right code and we already know it, we'll analyze the demand for the product. What is the market size and growth? What are the market shares? And then we will see what features are offered for the access on the target market. For example, the information about potential partners. I already anticipated that TradeMap uses the wide range of trade indicators. So we won't have only the values of trade, the annual, quarterly and monthly values of trade, but we will also have pre-calculated indicators for the ease of our analysis. We will have the indicators related to the market size, the value exported in the most recent year. Soon we will have the updates also for 2022, the trade balance, share, for example, of Peru's exports, the quantities exported, the units of quantities, whether it's tons or a different quantity, and the unit value. And here we have to be very careful with the interpretation of the unit value. For the purpose of our indicators, the unit values would be the value exported or imported divided by the quantity. So in no way this is the final price. No, this is not the final price. Then we have the set of indicators related to the dynamics and market growth. We can see the growth, the indicator of the growth in exported values between 2017-2021 in percent per year. We will see the growth indicators for quantities, and we will also see the growth indicator for the exported value for the most recent period, to 2020-2021. As I said, soon these indicators will be updated with the more recent data. We have other performance indicators, the rankings, and we have even more indicators. And here, I would like to draw your attention to the concentration indicator. The concentration indicator tells us how concentrated is the market. Are there many small suppliers in that market? For example, are there many, or let's say, is the Netherlands importing fresh grapes from many countries and the quantities imported from each country would be rather small? Or are the imports dominated by one or two main partners? So that is something we will find out through the concentration indicator. And if you click on Y, I will show you, you will see the way how this indicator is calculated. It is the Herfindahl index, but you don't have to remember the way how it's calculated. We have to know how to translate the figures we see into words. So if this indicator is lower than 1.1, that means that the market is not concentrated. If the value is between 0.1 and 0.18, it's a moderately concentrated market, and any values above 0.18 would indicate a concentrated market. Now I think that I've said a lot and it's time for another demonstration, if there are no questions.
No questions so far. I mean, I had a question regarding download of data from TradeMap. I would just like to say that we have many different agreements with national authorities, and we can't always make it available, unfortunately. And if you need really a lot of data, if you need to bulk download trade data, we recommend going to the UN Comtrade database.
Oh, it depends, if you need to upload the bulk data or what data you're interested in. But usually, if you register the data which you see on your screen, you could be able to upload. Yeah. So now, let's put us in the shoes of our trade advisor, Maria, and explore another tool. Can you see the trade map, please? The
Yes.
homepage? Amazing. So similarly to the previous case, I would be happy to make just a very quick tour through the homepage of Trade Map. We have the section on data availability. That is very important. If you click here, you can compare whether the data is available for the country you're interested in. If we see the red square, it means that data is not available. If we see the well, it's rectangle. The green rectangle, the country is reporting the data. If we see the yellow one or the orange one, that means that we use the mirror data. You can also check this for the quarterly and monthly data, and the same for the trading services data and the company data. So this is really important. If you are interested in knowing more, again, our time is short, I strongly recommend you to use the FAQs, to use the user guide and the glossary. And as I mentioned, here we have the harmonized system revisions correspondence. So if you have any doubt regarding the codes used for the product you're interested in the past, you can click on click here, either select the product code or enter your code here. So we know that for the purpose of our analysis today, we'll be using fresh grapes, and we are lucky because this code hasn't changed through the revisions, but very often you will see that the codes have changed, and this is how you can find out. So let's go back to the home page. And Maria now works closely with her client, and the client would like to learn a little bit more about the demand, about the main importing markets for fresh grapes. For that, we select import here, we select the product, not the service, single product, because we are interested in fresh grapes. We either type grapes here and the system will offer corresponding codes, or we put the code here, so we already have the code here, or we can also use the advanced search. And I am interested in trade indicators. Who are the main importers of fresh grapes? I obtain this table with the indicators we spoke about. So here we have the indicators at the global level. We see that the world trade balance is negative, and we know that this is mainly due to the different valuation of exports and imports, because in the ideal world, this balance should be not negative, right? We see the confirmation of what we've seen already in the export potential map, that the main importer or the biggest importer of fresh grapes would be the United States of America. The Netherlands is already the second most biggest importer. Then we have Germany and the United Kingdom, and also China. Now, how do we find out whether the market is a dynamic one? We have these values here, the growth rates. And we will see that at the global level, well, the performance of this market would be, well, moderately dynamic, not much dynamic. You know, we also refer to the period 2017 and 2021, so we have to take into account the COVID period. We can say that the performance of the Netherlands, of the dynamics of the Dutch market, is slightly better than the global average. If we compare the concentration indicators, we see that the global market is not concentrated, but for example, the US market is very concentrated. So the imports will be dominated by several big importers, or perhaps just one, and the Dutch imports would be also quite concentrated. Again, here you can click on metadata, and here you have the way how this indicator is calculated, how the Herfindahl index is calculated. So you receive more guidance here. So based on what we see here, we can say that the dynamics of the Dutch imports is higher than the world average. This is not the case of the UK market, but here what we are doing here, we are comparing the dynamics for imports from all countries. So we would obviously be interested in knowing more on what is happening on each particular market. For that, we pick, for example, the Netherlands, because we know that Maria's client is interested in the European markets. And if we click on the Netherlands, again, here we can see a slight guidance. We have the description, the list of supplying markets for the product imported by Netherlands in 2021. Our product is fresh grapes. You have the slight description of the position and dynamics of the Dutch market here. And here we see that the principal supplier would be South Africa. And that here, if we compare the indicators related to the dynamics, we see that the Peruvian export or the imports from Peru grow faster than the average. So Peru is already strongly tapping into this market. The growth in terms of value and in terms of the quantity have been both strong, and it seems that this growth in value accelerates. Yeah, we also have the indicator of the average distance, for example, here. What is important to know if we read the indicators? Now, suddenly, the concentration indicator differs. So here, this concentration indicator tells us more about the export basket of Peru. So does Peru export grapes to many countries, or rather onto a smaller amount of markets but larger quantities? Is the export of Peruvian grapes concentrated or not? Here we see that it is quite concentrated because the value will be above 0.18. So our advisor and our client would be probably happy to see this, seeing that Peru is already strongly tapping into this market, that they're already the exports from Peru to the Netherlands are growing, and that, for example, the Peru is doing better than some of its competitors, such as South Africa. If you want to continue with our analysis, we can also use the graphs here. The bubble charts used in the trade map are sometimes quite difficult to understand. So let's try to go through one of them. I will just narrow down the number of countries, and we can analyze together what we see here. So we have a bubble chart. Prospects for diversification of suppliers for a product imported by the Netherlands in 2021. And our product are the fresh grapes. On the horizontal axis, we have the share of partner countries and Netherlands imports and Dutch imports. We know that the biggest share was taken by South Africa. Peru would take the second biggest share, corresponding to more than 20% of the imports. The third place would be occupied by India. On the vertical axis, we have the annual growth of partner countries' exports to the world between. So this is the indicator how fast growth the exports from the partner countries on the global scale for this particular product. So we see that the Peruvian exports of fresh grapes are very dynamic compared to competitors. Then we have the color. The color would tell us whether the Dutch imports growth from the partner, in our case from Peru, are higher than the export growth of that partner to the world. In that case, the color would be blue, and we can indeed see that that the Dutch imports of fresh grapes from Peru have higher growth rates than the Peruvian exports of fresh grapes to the world on average. So this market seems to be very dynamic indeed. We know that the client of Maria was interested also in other European markets. We can do the similar analysis, for example, for the United Kingdom. We can also check the map, which would provide also very useful information. We can pick our indicator here. Let's keep the share in Netherlands imports, and we indeed see here that Peru and South Africa are currently the only two countries with the share in Dutch imports higher than 20%. So let's say that Maria's client is very excited about what he sees. He sees a dynamic market with strong growth of the Peruvian share. And now he would ask the question, this is nice, but I don't have partners there. You know, this market seems to be interesting, but I don't have markets in the Netherlands. And for that, we can also use TradeMap. It's a little bit slow, but in TradeMap, we also have the lists of distributors. This list is usually taken from two databases, Dun & Bradstreet, if you know it, and Compass database, depending on the country. So if the Peruvian producer of grapes is looking for the partner in the Netherlands, we can click here. We can select, for example, the fresh fruits and vegetables, and we see the importers and distributors of this type of product. So that is also the information which Maria can share with her client. TradeMap uses a lot of very useful data. It has many features, and we don't have time to go across everything. But for example, just to show you more, we can play around with quarterly time series to find out whether the trade in a certain product has a seasonal character. Obviously, in case of fresh grapes, we would expect it to have a seasonal character. But we can do the same, for example, for champagne, for sparkling wine, to see whether, for example, the imports in Netherlands growth during the fourth quarter, during the Christmas season. So for that, we can use the quarterly data. We have to be careful whether the country reports the data, but in case of the Netherlands, we don't have any problem. We can check the chart on seasonality. Let's do this. Update 5 main countries. And not surprisingly, we will see that indeed trade in fresh grapes obviously has a seasonal character. In this chart, Peru is dark blue. So we see that during the winter period, we have the peak here, not surprisingly. And we can obviously do much more. So now I would like to ask Lucas, whether we have any questions?
Yes, could you go briefly on how to create a product group? And is it possible to access trade indicators with product groups or only time series?
Good question. So we can create product groups here. once you register, you have the feature of managing the account, managing country groups and product groups. Product groups we have here. If it works, we can put the name of the group, for example, grapes and wine, whatever. Here we select the corresponding codes. So we would do 08 loading product. Grapes, fresh on dried. We add it here. We select more groups, for example, for wine, beverages. Wine of fresh grapes here. Or we can add this here, and we create a group like this. Now the system tells us that this group has been successfully created. We go to home page. We, for example, do imports of the product group. And I have grapes and wine here. So, and you see that we actually cannot access the trade indicators. So you see that it's very quick. You can do the same for countries, for example, if you want to create your country group or your own region for the ease of your analysis. Do we have more questions?
No, that's it for now. I suggest you go to the pool.
We do the poll.
So here we go. We have 2 multiple choice questions. Again, if you can't read it, please hover the mouse over the question and should be able to read it. So for the first question, sometimes you see the world trade balance is not equal to 0. How could this happen? A, different custom systems use different methodologies. B, issues related to evaluation of exports, imports, such as free on board and the cost insurance freight. C, both options above may be correct. Or D, there is a mysterious external exporter. For the second question, based on what indicators would you choose a potentially attractive market for an exporter? A, value of imports. B, annual growth in value and quantity. C, market concentration. Or D, all of the above and much more. I'll allow you to vote for a few more seconds. Just a few more seconds. Right, most of you have voted, so let's see the results. All right, for the first question, there's almost 60% of you voted for both options above may be correct. And for the second question, all of the above and much more. Great, good job.
Great. So I'm happy that I transferred the message and that we all have the same understanding of these issues. So now let's get back to the presentation. I'm just admitting one more participant here. I will share my screen again. And we will focus on the third tool, which is the market access map. Let's do this. Just do some adjustments on my side for better legibility. Okay. So now Maria our advisor knows more about the dynamics of the market. She can make recommendations on different European markets for her client, and client is quite happy about it. But he would say, yeah, I'm already exporting to the US and to Canada. I know that there are many different conditions that apply to the market access. I know that I will have to have a look at the customs tariff that would apply to trade in fresh grapes. I will have to find out whether my product is eligible for preferential treatment under any type of trade agreement, because I assume that there might be a trade agreement that could grant the preferential access to my product. I will have to find out whether the country by any chance does not apply the trade remedies on my product. Yeah, and then, fresh grapes are intended for the consumption. They should be eaten. So I'm pretty sure that there will be many regulatory requirements related to the phytosanitary and sanitary measures, technical measures. There will be a lot to be requested regarding the labeling and marketing, etc. So it is nice to see that the Netherlands looks like a very promising market for my let's say export diversification, but I will also need many more answers to my questions. Well, Maria is not surprised. She receives these questions all the time, and she already knows that she can use another tool, the market access map, to answer them. The market access map is a tool which allows us to find the information about the market access conditions, compare market access for different types of products and different markets, analyze markets, and much more. Again, the data is downloadable. That is probably something I did not manage, but usually anytime I show the chart or the table, these tables and charts are easily downloadable. So that is also one of the user-friendly features of our tools. What do we understand on the market access? Based on the questions of our Peruvian producer of grapes, we know that this goes much beyond the customs tariffs. We have to have a look at tariff quotas. We have to have a look at the other market access conditions, such as remedies or non-tariff measures. All this applied by countries to goods imported into their markets. Similar to other tools, Market Access Map has great coverage. We collect the information on customs tariffs, on MFN and preferential customs tariffs for more than 200 countries. We have the tariff rate quotas for 85 countries. We analyze more than 400 trade agreements. And for those agreements, we have the information on rules and certificates of origin. We have the information on trade remedies applied by more than 70 countries, etc., etc. So the coverage of this tool is very unique, and it is also very user-friendly. Before we start with our demonstration, please let me say a few words about tariffs. There are different types of tariffs that can be applied. The most common type of tariff would be the ad valorem tariff. That would be the percentage rate imposed on the value of the product. So the example of ad valorem tariff would be 10% or 20%. Then many countries instead use the specific tariffs, and that would be, for example, the case of Switzerland. In that case, the tariff would be expressed in the certain value, the amount of money per unit. For example, $2 per 1 kilogram. And when I say this, I would like you to think for yourself, what are the, let's say, effects of the specific tariffs on cheaper products and on more expensive products? If we have 2 pairs of shoes, 1 pair of shoes would be worth, let's say, $20. The specific tariff would be $10 per pair of shoes. And we will have another pair worth one luxury one, let's say for $100 or more. And the specific tariff would be also $10 per pair of shoes. would be the impact of the specific tariffs be symmetrical or rather asymmetrical? Would it be stronger for cheaper products or for more expensive products? So that will be one of the questions in the poll, so you can start thinking about it. Besides specific tariffs, we also have the compound tariffs. That will be the combination of both. We also can have mixed tariffs expressed as a percentage or the specific tariff, whatever is the highest. And we can also have the technical tariffs. So please don't be surprised when you see different types of tariffs in our system. Now, the question is, this is nice, but Katerina, you told us that you can compare. So how can we compare the specific tariffs, which is a certain value, with the ad valorem tariffs, a certain percentage? For that, we use the ad valorem equivalence and we calculate the equivalence. So we convert the specific tariffs into the ad valorem equivalence. We have the formula here. For the calculations, we use the specific tariffs divided by the unit value, and the unit value is something we've seen already in the trade map. Multiplied by 100 to obtain the percentage. Those of you who are familiar with the WTO work, with the work of the World Trade Organization, you also know that there are different types of tariffs. Let's say the bond tariffs and applied tariffs. Our database, the market access database, would include information on applied tariffs. It won't include the information on bond tariffs, which is the maximum level of customs tariffs to which a WTO member is committed toward another member. Yeah, so we will find the information on applied tariffs, among them the information on the most favorite nation tariffs. Just a quick reminder, this is the tariff to which the member of WTO is committed to apply on trade with other or imports from other WTO countries. Non-MFM tariffs would be imposed on imports from non-WTO countries, and the preferential tariffs could apply if a preferential agreement is in place. I also spoke about the trade remedies. We've all heard about the trade wars, for example. The trade remedies, a quick reminder, are the trade defense measures to protect domestic economics. For example, they are used to neutralize negative effects of subsidies. That would be the countervailing measures. They are used to fight the dumping prices of imports. That would be the anti-dumping measures. And they are used to fight against the sudden surge in imports. That would be the safeguard measures. Our database includes also this type of information. Now, we mentioned that the producer of grapes would be very concerned about the regulatory requirements, about so-called non-tariff measures. The non-tariff measures gain the importance over the years. They are more and more important for the international trade, also with agricultural products. If we should describe them, those would be the policy measures other than customs tariffs, which can potentially have an economic effect on international trade in goods, changing the quantities or prices or both. They would be either related to the exports and imports. And there is a very wide variety of those requirements, but they can be grouped into technical and non-technical. At ITC, we use this classification of non-tariff measures. If you are interested in learning more, I strongly recommend you to check our business surveys. They have a very well-developed methodology on this, and there is the link. There is the link to business surveys on the website of the Market Access Map. We have the question, I think. We have one raised hand. But please, if you don't mind, I will just finish my presentation, do the demonstration, and then we will answer your question. Would that work? Thank you, Sharissa. So here we have 16 different chapters, So you've seen different types of non-tariff measures. The first three groups, the sanitary and phytosanitary measures, technical barriers, and pre-shipment inspections would be the technical ones. The rest would be the non-technical ones, and the P measures would be the one related to exports. So you see that much broader variety of non-tariff measures is imposed on imports than on exports. So, well, maybe now we can answer the question.
Well,
We have one raised hand, but we've muted the participants. So
yes, if you could, whoever raised their hand, if you could maybe
Sharissa.
write to us so we can
Yeah.
can transmit the message.
And in the meantime, I will.
If you have a question, feel free to write directly to me, and I can always pass it to Katerina. Otherwise, we're also very tight on time. So if you want to start maybe the demonstration.
Yes, with pleasure. So we now do the market access map. Can you please see the tool?
Yes.
I think you can. Great. So as I mentioned previously, the market access map includes the access module. Here we can check what countries, for example, impose the trade remedies. We have the compare modules to compare markets, competitors, and products. We have the analyze module to learn more about the trade agreements, and we can also download. What is very interesting, we also have a special site with the information on temporary measures related to COVID-19. We will be soon retiring this section because this information is now not really updated, and we have the information about the temporary measures related to the war in Ukraine, and this information is updated on a monthly basis. So if you're interested in temporary measures, please do not hesitate to explore them. The navigation through market access map is very easy. We enter the country. Exporting country, in our case, Peru. Destination country would be Netherlands. And here we either write grapes, and we have the selection, so we know that we are interested in fresh grapes, or we directly enter the code, the HS6 code. We do the search to check the market access conditions. Here we see that for this particular HS6 group, we will have different national tariff lines. So this is the menu of national tariff lines. We have 3 different national tariff lines at the, I believe, 12-digit level, or 10-digit. At the 10-digit level, that would be the tariff code for trade in the EU. And we also see that the first one has a seasonal character. This one would apply only to trade in variety emperor between the 1st and 31st January and the 1st and 31st December, which would be the peak season for trade in this type of product. Since we are not in this period, let's select the fresh tradable grapes other and the second code. We immediately see the information about the customs tariffs. We see the MFN duties. The applied duty is 11.5%. We don't have to calculate the ad valorem equivalent since this is the ad valorem tariff. And there is the possibility to apply to obtain a preferential treatment. And under some circumstances, the preferential tariff for Peruvian for imports from Peru would be 0%. We will need to learn more about the related trade agreement. So we click on this link which directs us to the synthetic information about the agreement. We know that there is a free trade agreement between the EU and Andean Community, which entered into force in 2013. And here we have the information about the parties to this treaty. Among them is Peru. In order to obtain the preferential treatment, the imports of grapes from Peru would obviously need to meet criteria, and they will need to meet the criteria related to rules of origin. We can either have a closer look at the chapter on rules of origin of that related free trade agreement here and go through it. So you see that the text is available. We can also check the full text of agreement and the chapter on product-specific rules of origin. Or alternatively, we can click on Find Out More, and we will be redirected to another tool, which is the Rules of Origin Facilitator with the information for this product. So it takes a while to upload, but here we have a very synthetic information related to the rules of origin. So here, this tool would tell us that in order to comply with the criteria, the product would have to be wholly obtained in Peru. So obviously the grapes would have to be grown in Peru. And you have a very nice table with all the information related to the rules of origin. So that was just to show you another tool, which is not subject of our presentation today. And here, back to the market access map, we also have the sample of the certificate of origin, Year 1 certificate used for the European Union. We see that the Netherlands does not apply any trade remedies for the selected product. And we also see that the list of regulatory requirements is quite long. So altogether, the Netherlands and potentially all countries of the European Union would apply the total of 35 measures on this type of product. We see also that most of them would indeed belong to the Chapter 1, phytosanitary and sanitary measures applied in order to protect the human health. So we can click, for example, on tolerance limit for residues of or decontamination by certain subsidies. We see that we have 3 measures here, and by clicking on those measures, I selected the one related to the pesticide residues. We have the information about the applicable EU regulations. We have a brief description here. We have the implementation authority, the validity. We see that this measure is applied to import from the whole world. And we can upload the document or have the link. So that is an easy way how we can find more information about the non-tariff measures, about regulatory agreements. So that is for the market access conditions. We can also compare. We know that the client of Maria is interested in the Netherlands. And he would like to know what are his market access conditions compared to the conditions of others. So here the destination country would be Netherlands. So we will use the compare competitors. Search products by 3.08061. And we can start comparing. So these will be the aggregated market access indicators for the entry onto the Dutch market for product fresh grapes. Well, what we can do here, we can sort them out according to the export value by clicking twice on this column. So we know already that the main supplier is the South Africa. we have Peru as the number 2, and we will see that the conditions of those two competitors are very similar. The MFN tariff would be obviously 8.63. We, under certain circumstances, we can have access to the preferential tariffs, and the preferential margin would be the difference between those two. If you paid attention previously, you would have seen that the tariff for that national tariff line I picked previously was 11.5. Now suddenly we have 8.63. What is behind? This is the average. We can see that in our 6-digit code, we have 3 national tariff lines. So that would be the average for all 3. So again, this information is synthesized, and you have to be careful when interpreting it. We can do the chart, or we can do the map. For example, this is quite interesting, very illustrative, and we can compare, for example, with other countries from South Africa for better visualization. So we see that for the access onto the Dutch market, the countries here in light blue could use could benefit from average tariff at 0%, knowing that there is a preferential agreement, and countries such as Brazil would have the average applied tariff of, which would be higher, 8.63% in this case. So again, this is a very nice visualization. One more thing, we can compare markets, do the same thing to compare the access of Peruvian grapes onto the Dutch and the UK market, for example. We know that the Netherlands is in the EU. The United Kingdom is no more the member state of the EU, so there would be a different free trade agreement that would apply for trade with both destinations, knowing that those agreements actually are quite similar, but still, the rates and tariffs would differ. Or we can analyze or compare products. That is another interesting feature. If I manage to click on products, it's not working. Yeah. Our producer from Peru can ask himself or herself a question. Okay, I'm exporting fresh grapes, but what if I exported dry grapes? Would that mean any difference? Would the market access conditions differ? So the exporting countries would be Peru. Destination country, we can keep Netherlands. Here we have this search, product search at the HS6 level we put. Now the system will be searching. We'll have to be a little bit patient. Here we can tap 0806, and we will be able to compare for both products. So the average tariff for the average MFN tariff for fresh grapes would be higher than for dry grapes. And we already see that for dry grapes, we have 4 national tariff lines, for example. What we can also do is to compare or analyze the trade agreements. We know that Peru is a party to more than 30 trade agreements. And with the use of this tool, we can easily compare the conditions of those agreements. For example. So yeah, we don't have time to do that, but I would like to invite you to play around and test other features of this unique and very useful tool. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? So now I think we can respond the outstanding questions.
Yeah, so regarding the previous question, it was related to trade-related investment measures. If you could give maybe a short definition or maybe an example.
Investment measures?
Yeah, trade-related investment measures. It was on the NTM slide.
NTM slide.
Yeah.
So we unfortunately don't have, I will show you. We unfortunately don't have time to analyze the NTMs here, but if we go to the home page, I believe that here we have the NTM business surveys. We go to the website of the NTM business surveys and they have a very detailed methodology. So if we do learn about NTMs, we have a very detailed description of each chapter of each type of measure. So if you want to learn in detail about this, go please to the NTM survey and their methodology, and you will find out more about this. Thank you. That is another very useful useful activity we do here, but unfortunately we don't have time to cover it all. Because the NTM business surveys actually analyze the non-tariff measures faced by exporters and importers in different countries at a very high level of detail. So I would strongly invite you to have a look at this too. Lucas, do we have any questions or can we start our poll?
Should we passed a little on the time? Should we do the
Exact.
poll?
Well, we can do the poll, or if you see any pertinent questions, please do not hesitate.
No more questions related to MacMap. So let's do the poll.
Let's do the poll. This trade map one. We need to do the market access one. Choose a different one.
Yeah, I'm trying to, but I'm not.
I can try to launch it.
Not able to launch for some reason.
Really? Well, it's bugging.
Yeah,
It is.
no luck with polls today.
So I do end it.
Oh, that's
back. So market access launch. So can you see it? I will launch it. Can you see it now, please?
Yes, I can
Cool.
now.
So if you could just read the questions.
Right. So for the first question, before accessing a foreign market, what are the market access conditions to consider? And the second question, what effect do specific tariffs have on trading inexpensive versus luxury or more expensive products? Is this effect symmetrical or asymmetrical?
And myself, I cannot enter the answers. Can you, Lucas? So I think that
No, I
the
can't.
way how our colleagues prepared the poll was probably not the best one. So let's maybe let's try to answer together. Well, we can see that people try to answer, so maybe we'll give us 1 minute to see, but obviously the range of market access conditions is very broad. We will have to consider tariffs, we will have to consider trade remedies, we have the NTMs, we have potentially also quotas, and much more. We can go beyond the market access conditions as defined in the market access map. And I'm really curious, what are you going to respond in terms of the second question, because it's quite interesting. Can we have a look at responses, please?
Sure, let's see if we can this time. I cannot look. I cannot
I
see
can't
the
see them
responses.
either. That is a pity. That is a pity. So I think
It's
that we
too
are
bad.
clear for market market access conditions. We know that we are already spending more time on this presentation than anticipated, but we still believe that it might be interesting for you. So the last response, the effects of specific tariffs. And these specific tariffs might have stronger effects on inexpensive products. If we have the example of shoes that cost $20 or 20 francs, we will have the tariff at 10 francs. That would make us 30 francs in total. Whereas if we add 10 francs to the 100 worth pair of shoes, that would make us 110 francs, and we will see that the difference actually between the two in terms of relative difference would become smaller. So the specific tariffs might have stronger impact on inexpensive products. At first, the inexpensive shoes were 5 times cheaper than the expensive ones, but this is not the case when we add the tariff anymore. So thank you. If there are no more questions, I would like to thank you for your attention. We didn't have time to speak about trade and services, but never mind. That is something we will do next time. Many thanks for your active participation. One more time, I'm sorry for the pause. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to write to our generic address you can access through our tools, and we'll be happy to respond to your questions. Thank you one more time, and have a lovely rest of the day. Maybe good night, depending where you are. Thank you. Thank you one more time, and have a lovely afternoon if you are based in Europe. Bye.